Zohran Mamdani, he is a delegate in New York who is a socialist, an open democratic socialist. He ran prioritizing affordability issues, things like freezing the rent, lowering the cost of groceries and making the city more affordable, baby baskets for newborns, and a bunch of policies, most of which I look upon favorably, some of which, like the rent freeze, I just don't think is good policy, but I understand like the populist leaning of that. But he spoke to affordability in a way that Andrew Status Quo Cuomo was not able to, and that Eric, Turkey's favorite patriot Adams, was also not able to. And so he won the Democratic primary. He beat Andrew Cuomo, and now he is headed towards a general where he might have to face both Andrew Cuomo again, who has openly floated an independent run, and an Eric Adams who's already dedicated himself to a independent run. And you know, he's really hit the ground running over at the finance network, CNBC.
Where do you think you differ the most with Mamdani?
I think it's an easier question to say what are the one or two areas where you're similar on.
Are there any?
Well, first of all, I agree with the affordability issue.
Look, they saw affordability worked for Mamdani, and this current mayor with multiple corruption scandals, who sits at an approval rating of 22%, is now, after seeing the results of the Democratic primary, trying to grab onto the language that got Mamdani the momentum that he got. But if you're currently mayor and your opponent can point to you as a representative of the status quo, who's already had a term to deal with affordability, and he could say failed, and is not willing to adopt the more, you could just flatly say, more extreme, I don't know if I'd use the word extreme, but you could say more aggressive policies of Mamdani, you're going to be in an uphill battle. Not to mention he's running as the independent when Mamdani is going to be the Democratic nominee. Tough business. Also, I would say that Eric Adams, looking like he's getting strong-armed by the Trump administration 24/7 as they hold legal charges over his head, certainly does not help in blue New York, despite any inflows the Trump administration got when it come to the state swinging towards him a little bit more in 2024. So I think that Cuomo can't beat him. He's already gotten beat by Cuomo already got beat. Eric Adams is in some ways an even more flawed candidate than Cuomo, as a bigger representative of the status quo, as the current option of mayor that has a very low approval rating, and with corruption scandals, including foreign governments, being forced to run as an independent. The odds are heavily against Eric Adams. That doesn't mean that the billions upon billions of dollars that outspent Mamdani by 1.5 miles might not be brought around from pro-Trump billionaires or otherwise to try to stop a socialist from becoming mayor of, the guy who, where of the city where Wall Street's located. But money didn't beat him round one. I don't know why money is going to beat him round two. So right now, it looks like Mamdani has a pretty clear shot to victory in November. He has the momentum. He has now a ton of name recognition, as the news media has covered him constantly. So any concern about his name or whatever, that doesn't matter. Any concern about him not being a well-known, that's being pushed back. And he's running against a possibly unpopular independent Andrew Cuomo, who he's already beat and has like 15 different women accusing him, who could be seen as a representative of the status quo or the actual status quo as a person who is currently mayor of New York, highly flawed. So I think he has a clean shot for victory. But despite the fact that he's won the Democratic primary, and despite the fact that he has momentum and he has a ton of national headline coverage, and despite the fact that he's probably going to win and he has momentum, many high-ranking Democrats, including the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, is not endorsing Zohran Mamdani. Let's listen to what she had to say.
Will you support his candidacy and will you back him?
You know, the election just completed. I had a chance to call and congratulate him on the Tuesday's primary and look forward to having conversation. Obviously, there's areas of difference in our positions, but I also think we need to have those conversations. But in the meantime, I truly am not focused on the politics. We're 6 months away from Inauguration Day, and that'll determine who I'm working with for the next 4 years. And that's important because what I'm doing, I'm focusing on affordability and making New York City safe and making the state safe. So that's—
See how everyone's saying affordability now? Affordability, affordability, affordability. They're all trying to grab the word affordability, which he used very well during his campaign that dripped with authenticity. And they're just like kind of grabbing onto it after the fact, but without like a bold new idea, good or not, honestly, but without a new bold idea, something to pitch with it. You're just saying a buzzword. You're just saying the thing that the pundits say helped Mamdani win.
That's my primary objective right now.
So are you skeptical then of him and then also the will of New York City voters, New York Democratic primary voters? Do you think that their choice is not valid?
No, I don't see how you can possibly conclude that from what I just said. I said that I'm going to be having conversations. I want to find out, positions on specific issues. But in the meantime, I'm working closely with Mayor Eric Adams, who is the mayor, who we have a lot of work to do to get through, a crisis right now. We just had a lot of people in our city, under siege with, excessive temperatures. We have to keep making sure our subways are safe, building more housing under City of Yes, which we are able to get over the finish line. So as much as there's a lot of people, perhaps even in this room, who are very focused on the politics, I don't have the luxury to do that. I focus on governing and delivering for New Yorkers and working with the people that are in government today.
Governor,
She focused on the politics when she spoke at the DNC convention and got one of the most milquetoast responses from a crowd of Democrats I've ever seen in my life as a completely uninspiring figure. Somebody who could get a crowd of like hyper up, sugar-filled 6-year-olds to go to nap time through her inspiring, vigorous rhetoric. Look, this looks hypocritical on its face. Despite any verbal online support that Mamdani might have tweeted out about, I think Uncommitted's doing good work to bring attention to the Palestinian issue, or because I hear this brought up a few times, even though I look for more stuff, and I did not see Mamdani like consistently campaigning against somebody voting for Harris outside of this, I think like one tweet that he gave to a shout out to an Uncommitted campaign. This shows like a lack of unity in the Democratic Party. He won. And not only did he won by nearly 10 points. He won by a margin that is pretty sizable, that blew out of the water all the polls, including the one poll on the eve of the election that had him up. He has a quite large operation of volunteers. They knocked on a lot of doors. They got their message out there. He drips authenticity. He was popular enough to beat the household name of Cuomo. Instead of being slow like they were to accept AOC's conquest of Joe Crowley and to adopt her as a superstar in the party that brings in a lot of fundraising, that gets youth energized, that wakes up a base of the party that we need woken up, we need on the street, we need active right now. Instead of doing that, they risk just letting this opportunity pass by. Not only does the rhetoric look hypocritical in comparison to the 2024 unite around Harris, unite around the party, vote blue no matter who rhetoric, when there's going to be a Republican on the ballot in November, there's going to be a scandal-ridden Turkish patriot on the ballot, there's going to be possibly a sex pest on the ballot, and we're going to decide that we're going to break party unity for them. It doesn't look good. The Democratic Party has an image when it comes to, how it manages its primary process, that a reputation it built in some parts unfairly, in other ways fairly, when it comes to how the primary was run against Bernie and how untransparent that many outside looking in, due to both ignorance and real critiques, view the party apparatus. This is an easy, look, he won, he's our nominee, I support the Democratic Party nominee. And so the rhetoric looks hypocritical. But I also think that, again, there's an opportunity here to jump onto the momentum of the ideas that he put forward that are good ideas. I think that baby baskets for newborns is a popular, good idea that can counter the false pro-family policies of the Republican Party. I can see the pitch right now. While Republicans cut Medicaid and reduce funding to the rural hospitals that families rely on, we're making sure that newborns have baby baskets and that new mothers, expectant mothers, have the resources to raise kids to be well-functioning, productive members of society. They can pitch a pro-family policy from this, and it's not like it's unproven policy. You can call it a handout, but I've been to Finland, and yeah, taxes there are higher, but also babies get baskets at birth, and the social safety net is quite extensive, and they have one of the lowest crime rates in the entire world. I remember when I first went to Finland, I asked my buddy, should I carry my knife around? And he said, no. I would be surprised if you even got into a fist fight. And it's because the crime is low. Because they've invested in the common community. It's not the only reason. There's cultural reasons, there's other reasons. But you invested in the common community. You took care of those around you, children's education, children's health. And I think that there are good ideas we can jump on and we can run with. You don't need to pick up the rent freeze and say we're going to do a national rent freeze. But you can try to pick up the affordability of housing, expanding public housing, expanding construction of housing. You can pick up the baby basket idea. You can pick up any number of literally cherry-picked. You can cherry-pick the ideas that are most palatable to voters across districts outside of blue New York and run with it. And say, look, the Democratic Party is a diverse party. It's a Big Tent party. We've got pro-gun Democrats in this state all the way to progressives like Mamdani in New York. You can make that pitch, but leaning towards the things that unite us is pro-family, making sure the family has stuff to take care of its kids. The things that unites us is affordability. The things that unites us is making sure that there's more housing and lower cost of housing. The things that unite us, they can run on that. And you can see them wanting to take the language of it. You can see the saplings of a good idea starting to sprout out of the forehead of Kathy Hochul when she talks about affordability. When Andrew Cuomo starts to talk about affordability now. When Eric Adams talks about affordability. But you need ideas to get attention that are easy to deliver, authentically delivered, and rigorously delivered to the American people. So they see the Democratic Party as a party with a positive vision of big ideas and not just a party of we are not Donald J. Trump. Now, Kathy Hochul and complaining about a lot of Democratic unity is one side of the coin. On the other side of the coin, it's just like full fear-mongering, like live on CNN. Listen to this.
Scared, and I'm hearing from various people here in New York, and they're concerned about their safety living here with a Muslim mayor, and that's problem.
Highly probable.
Hold on.
They shouldn't
Because of
Hold on.
Muslim
Hold on. We talked about this yesterday, and since you brought it up, might as well bring it up again. The idea that because he is Muslim, he is a threat to Jewish New Yorkers? Is that really what you're saying?
No, it's because of his anti-Israel rhetoric that he's been putting out.
But what does that have to do with him being Muslim? I think this is where you can go after his policies, but what does that have to do with his faith?
It's not about his faith. It's because he is perpetuating this anti-Israeli rhetoric, and New Yorkers are hearing it, and they're scared. That's what I'm hearing back from friends.
So why did you cite his faith? I know Jews that are anti-Israel. There's Jews that are anti-Israel. There's Christians that are anti-Israel. There are Muslims that are anti-Israel. Or at the very least, anti-military aid to Israel. If not anti the existence of Israel. Why lead with these Muslim? There is a certain urge, a certain desire at the back of the throats of all these commentators, and she let it slip out, and now she's trying to backtrack. But there's an urge to say, this is New York City. Muslims are scary. This is a city that's been just horribly targeted by terrorism. Muslims are scary. Do we really want to elect somebody of the same faith as the hijackers? Do we really want to elect somebody as the same faith as those Hamas guys? Do we really want to elect somebody by his faith he is a threat to Israel, which is the way that this was originally communicated? And she can try to backtrack it now that she's being confronted by the CNN host or any of the other CNN panelists, as CNN has to get a broad strokes approach of commentary from everyone from educated professionals to knuckle-dragging window licker. But she said what she said.
He's aimed at beat.
And
He's aimed at
in that beat.
He's aimed at a lot at Bibi. He did the interview with Mehdi Hassan, and he aimed at Bibi, not necessarily.
I think
But Abby, he's Muslim. Who cares? That's not the point here. His policies are the problem.
And there has to be somebody else in there in the room now to wait, okay, let's go back. Let's not get angry about him being Muslim. Let's go back to a policy discussion. Look, at the end of the day, there is so much, I would say 20 to 30% of the backlash I am seeing. No, I would leave that solid on the 30%. Just has to do with the fact of who he is, not with his ideas. This is a good, and I am wondering how much of the campaign moving forward is going to be concentrating on that versus legitimate policy disagreements. Because darkening his beard and campaign paraphernalia, or trying to lean into the fact, does New York really want this again? I don't think that's going to work. And so there's a part of me that hears this and think, oh God, this is terrible for Mamdani. This is terrible for American Muslims. This is terrible rhetoric, period, for the United States. But also, this is losing rhetoric. This is rhetoric that will lose. This is rhetoric that will lose. If this is what they run on, instead of going in there and trying to portray, take his worst moments, blow them up, and then trying to go out there and saying, look, this guy, this communist who says he wants to defund the police, bring back the chaos of the 90s of the crime era, like, that's the stuff that unironically would probably work better than this. That's not to say that Mamdani really now wants to like defund all the cops and do X, Y, Z, or he wants to engage in this bad rhetoric, but blowing that stuff up is going to be more effective and actually going towards after things like maybe like rent control, even though it polls well, it might be bad policy. If they concentrate on this, there's no chance. Not even to talk about the slim chance if they don't concentrate on this, but they can't help themselves. Marjorie Taylor Greene, this hits hard. This hits hard. And it's a Statue of Liberty, AI adjusted, edited to be wearing a burqa. Burqa. Mind you, Mamdani's wife does not wear a burqa, does not wear a hijab. She is a veilless Syrian. Mamdani is like on queer TikTok shows shouting out like his like gay people, like this is, so he's super woke. We need to stop the woke. He's super pro LGBT, and you know his girlfriend and wife, you know, walks around veilless in New York City, the capital of capitalist Western degeneracy. And this is the man who's going to bring what? Sharia law to the United States? To New York? This hits hard. This hits hard. But this didn't end here. A representative of Tennessee's 5th Congressional District, Representative Andy Olgs, put out a letter to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, calling on Zohran, who he called Little Muhammad Mamdani, to be deported from the United States of America, even though he is a naturalized American citizen. Zohran Little Mamdani is an anti-Semitic socialist communist who will destroy the great city of New York. He needs to be deported. which is why I am calling for him to be subject to denaturalization proceedings. This is where he started. This was his end goal. Now, he can try to find whatever route he wants there. It seems like the current pathway is that he's trying to, like, hey, let's go back to his naturalization forms and see if he lied. Let's go to the N400 naturalization forms. And he's posting these AI edits of himself deporting Zohran Mamdani from the United States, calling him Little Muhammad because he's Muslim. Which, I mean, look, little Andy McVeigh is very, very insistent on this. He went on Benny Johnson to explain his process of, like, hey, he might have violated he joined a group in 2018 and he didn't file on his citizenship form in 2018 about being in said group. Therefore, we should denaturalize him, and after denaturalization, we should deport him because he does not agree with what I agree with. And he's a raving lunatic who can't win in the free marketplace of ideas, so he simply wants to deport his opponents, and sycophants like Benny Russian Agent Johnson are right there ready to deliver that message to the people and try to convince people that it is a successful political strategy that if you cannot win at the ballot box, to simply deport your opponents. Mind you, Donald Trump is openly, while talking to the El Salvadorian president, looking for ways to deport American citizens. So this is a process that Donald Trump would like to skip, the deportation of non-citizens. No, American citizens as well, deport them to foreign prisons. But they still have to, at the moment, go through this process of denaturalization if they want to go through this. And so their backstop strategy here is basically an open admission of can't win, deport.
We can cut to the chase, but obviously there was a really shocking Democratic primary in the city of New York. By the way, the great city of New York, and they've got their issues with liberal policies, and we could spend a whole episode on that. But this guy is a nut job, and so, but as
anybody who wants to deport people because they won an election is an authoritarian, anti-American nut job. If you want to deport naturalized American citizens because they don't agree with the same beliefs that you agree with, then fundamentally I have to question your Americanness.
We look at, so he became a naturalized citizen, and so we sent a letter to Pam Bondi. So that's kind of where we're at. I'll let you queue up and whatever you want to do, and I can answer questions.
We have your letter. We have the mayor. We have Mr. Mayor. We have Mr. Mayor, of course. Rudy Giuliani was a federal prosecutor. He just made a ton of news in the last interview saying you absolutely need to investigate this guy. You need to investigate him for his connections to terrorist organizations. If you're rapping about him, as your letter states,
that's right.
If you're rapping about helping Hamas and the guys who funded Hamas, who are in prison for funding Hamas, well, you got to at least be in favor of it. There's got to be something that you like about that. Maybe you can elucidate further for us what your office found.
Well, so to give your viewers context, so like on your naturalization forms, there's a section on there where
Could you imagine, hey, we need to investigate Tulsi Gabbard because of her Russia sympathetic things, and if she is a Russian agent, we're going to deport her to Russia. And if we think we find anything that could show her being too sympathetic to this is bizarro authoritarian land. This is the perversions of those who have no principles.
Talks about your activity and your alliances, and so we've continued to dig the team.
Instead of saying, hey, let's support Curtis Silva, the Republican nominee, and beat him in the general, they know they can't lose in the general, so instead they want to deport Zohran Mamdani based off of rap lyrics he released when he was like what, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Forms, there's a section on there where it talks about your activity and your alliances, and so we've continued to dig. The teams continue to dig. So we actually have breaking news for your show that so he became a citizen, naturalized citizen in 2018.
To be clear, when he said that he wrapped support for Hamas, he wrapped support for an organization whose certain members in said organization were found criminal for providing material support to Hamas. It wasn't like, Hamas are my guys. I like October 7th. That wasn't a rap lyric he dropped.
Same time he's filling out these forms to become a citizen, he's joining a communist group here in the United States. And so if we can go back and fill in the dots of when he was joining that group versus when he filled out that paperwork, it may very well disqualify him from being a citizen of the United States of America.
Listen to him, by the way. When you read the tweet, he said he lied on the N-400. Deport him. When he gets him down to talk, he's like, well, we need to investigate and see if he could have lied about being in an organization. Not that he was a criminal, not that he provided material support to a terrorist organization, not that he did really anything to endanger the United States, but that he was the member of a commie group when filling out these forms. In which he can't even identify if that was the case, if it was after or before he filled out the doc. He's saying he still needs to investigate, so he doesn't even know, despite claiming to know on social media. But hey, what does that matter when you're tearing families apart? It hasn't mattered for all the people that are being torn out of the arms of their family members right now, the specifics. It doesn't matter when you're deporting the Afghan heroes who translated for American soldiers in Afghanistan, and it doesn't matter when you're deporting those who beat your political projects.
That's why,
whether it be Curtis Iowa, Eric Adams, Cuomo, or he just happens to be a Democrat that's too left for you.
This is so important. And so what we're trying to do, even for some reason that he slips through the fingers, he slips through the cracks, and we can't get him.
Listen to this talk. Even if we can't get him on these, if he slips through the cracks, again, his existence is wrong to them. His existence, the fact that he breathes, is wrong to them. It's not, well, we're worried about if he really properly was naturalized as an American citizen. We just so happen to be worried now that he's won an election, right? It's very convenient timing for being worried about it. But even if we find out that he dotted his I's and crossed his T's, oh, he slipped through our fingers. It's not about following the law. It's about he's Muslim, he doesn't agree with my politics, therefore he can't be an American. That's where it ends. That's the period on their paragraph.
We're going to create a template where we can go after other radicals who come to this country, become a citizen, and quite frankly, they're a sleeper to undermine our government.
Again, sleeper to undermine our government. Just because he's a leftoid doesn't mean he's a foreign agent. And it is not illegal to be a leftoid, you McCarthyist freak. Will this guy ever be reprimanded by his own party? No. No, he will not. He could say that Mamdani was directly involved in the 9/11 terror attacks, and if he got any reprimand, I would be surprised. Pay attention to your chat. Put it on screen, please. Oh my God. Okay, sorry, it's not on screen. You give up, Danable? Then give up. Give up. I read it out loud. What, do you guys need a fucking picture book? You guys need a picture book? So this right here represents the missile. No, I'm not doing that.